it's very overwhelming, but in an amazing way. I think, to go through that process, which is really, really tough and so much tougher than it looks, and to get to the finish line and actually come out on top is the most amazing feeling. So yeah, it's all very overwhelming, but all for very good reason.
The process is so long, it's so grueling, and I think for me it was all about that pitch. So once I'd done that pitch, I'd kind of mentally checked out, and I thought the last boardroom was all going to be fun and games, and then in reality it wasn't. He was really coming at me and Rachel.
I want to expand, so I'm wanting to open another studio up in Jesmond in Newcastle.
Rachel.
The whole thing that I need to prove to Lord Sugar is why we are different in this saturated market, and essentially it's like a social fitness hangout.
The final moments, I mean, hopefully Phil doesn't mind me saying this, but Phil and I, by the end, we were so tired, we just couldn't wait to see our families. And we're in that boardroom waiting for the finish line to get there. And he's going between us both saying, why should I invest in you, Phil? Why should I invest in you, Rachel? And it seemed to go on. I don't know if Phil felt the same, but it seemed to go on forever. And all I could focus on was, I felt like I'd done everything I could at that point to prove why I should be Lord Sugar's next investment and business partner. And all I could focus on was seeing my family that evening. I was just so excited to see them. So I think by the end, it was a tough moment. It was a really tough moment.
I think that last bit is all about just giving whatever you've got left in the tank, really trying to show Lord Sugar how passionate you are about your business, and, how much you've tried to do in the process to prove to him that you want to be his next business partner. And, once you've done that, there's not really much more you can do. It's all down to the lap of the gods, really.
Was there any moment in time that you kind of regret a little bit?
I don't really regret many moments at all in the show. There was one moment in episode 5 where, as a viewer, you could see me talking over Flo quite a lot in a negotiation. I don't know if you remember that. And I think that was a bit of a learning curve for me, because I realised that in kind of like working in a collaborative team, sometimes I'm so used to being the boss, and I'm so used to sort of getting my own way and having the last say. And it was a bit of a moment where I realised that there are times just to sit there and shut up, and that was one of those moments. And I think that was really a point where I learned that moving forward in the process, that it was very much, you're working as a team, do what you need to do when you need to do it, and do it well. And I think that was probably the only regret, especially having watched the show back, because obviously the way you watch it isn't always the way that it kind of happens. But that was the only regret. But other than that, absolutely no regrets. I loved, looking back, I love being in the boardroom so much, because I got so much time with Lord Sugar. Like, he really knew me. In the end, he was like, Phil, I've seen you more than I've seen my bloody family. But so that was one of the positives in terms of the losing side of it. But no regrets. That's not really the way I live my life. I've just really loved the process.
That is really nice.
Lord Sugar said to me, your business looks okay, but I need you to prove to me that this can be scaled up to be a big national brand. And obviously the online market is prime for that.
It's really soft to cut.
It was like, I was trying to watch it as a viewer, and like I used to sort of lean into the losses and laugh along with it. But I think in reality, I think if you spoke to the people on task and you spoke to Lord Sugar and you had the opportunity, there wasn't many tasks looking back that it was, Phil was the failure of the task in that week. And maybe week 6 when me and Sam was sort of touch and go a little bit. But I knew myself, I was a strong candidate. I knew I was contributing to the team's wins and losses, and there wasn't very many wins. But there was at not one point did I think to myself, I shouldn't be here, I'm losing all these tasks. Like, in my head, I was kind of like, it's only a matter of time before I get the win. Obviously, it came a little bit later than I would have liked. But like I say, spending time with Lord Sugar in the boardroom, we're being assessed on absolutely everything. I think we're being assessed in the house, we're being assessed on task, and he's really looking for someone who can run a business and be a business partner with. And I think sometimes the tasks are just the kind of obstacle course that he creates so he can see what you're made of. And I think he realised that I was made of tough stuff, and I think that's why he respected me.
I've got to back Phil as well on that point, because I think in life in general, and I know this is ironic because I've just won the show, but in general, like, you're not going to win every week. That's just not real life. And those tasks, I don't think it's actually designed, those tasks, to see who wins every week. I think it's actually designed to see how you can take failure and how resilient you can become. So, like, backing Phil, just because he lost 9 tasks, I know, I can see how the public is seeing it, but it doesn't mean he's not deserving to be in the final, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I was going to say completely true.
I see it all the time. It's like, guys, you weren't there. You don't know how hard it was.
Don't get me wrong. If I was watching it and I hadn't experienced it, I'd be looking at it going, get this guy off. What's he doing on the show? He shouldn't be here. But yeah.
Oh, really?
I'm looking at home fan and go.
Yeah, I think like that is fine. So I want you to stand up there. You're now going to do it with a dumbbell.
What do you think, guys?
Having everyone back was just as amazing as it looked. Like, you can see in our faces, Phil and I's faces, when all the ex-candidates come back in, we're just so excited to see them. And for me, you know, the pitch was really nerve-wracking because there was so much pressure there. You know, you've not just got, I think it was 150 people, 150 to 200 people in that crowd of people. And it's all televised as well, which just adds that extra bit of pressure. And even though you've been on television the last 12 weeks at this point, it is still really nerve-wracking. But that is the most prominent thing I've ever done in my career. You know, being able to pitch about North Studio, this little business that I set up in a small town in Leeds, to these industry experts who I looked up to and who I based my business on. You know, 5-6 years ago, I was looking at them thinking, how could I do what they're doing better but up north? And how can I, you know, show the Northerners that we can have what the South have? And they were there asking me about my business. So there's a moment just before I pitch where I get quite emotional, and I think, A, I'm missing my family. That was always number one. But B, I'd seen the name cards of some of the people that were there, and I couldn't quite believe that they were going to be there to ask about my business. So it was the highlight of my career, 100%.
And Phil, what about you? I mean, again, it just sounds also emotional too. Was that the same sort of feeling for you as well?
Yeah, I think for me, like, I'm a really poor reader, and I think I had this moment in school where, you know, you have to stand in front of the class and read. And I think, like, I was damaged from that. And I've always had a fear of public speaking. I've always avoided it in my professional career. I avoided it as much as I could in the process. And there's obviously a point where you have to pitch. And I did some pitches, and some were good. Some was a few stumbles. You saw in week 10, there was a little stumble there. And I'm not going to lie, like, the pitch was absolutely petrifying to me. It's probably the most scared I've ever been of anything in my whole life. And you don't get a huge amount of time to prepare everything. You know, it's kind of like you have to get these cards and you have to go up there. And I was so pleased with the pitch. It was almost like it was like an out of body experience. I was in the moment. I was living it, and it was happening. It almost felt like a dream. And I will look back at that, like Rach, as easily the highlight of my career. And it was, I'm very self-critical of myself, but I come off and I give myself a pat on the back. I said, well done, Phil, you've done well there. And I was really pleased with it. And like I said earlier, after that, it was like, oh, sit down, rest, and that's it, done. But it wasn't quite that way.
How has Lord Sugar been as new business partner and mentor versus boardroom nightmare?
You know, I can't really say too much at this point. All I can say is, you know, I actually really enjoyed working with him on the show. I think he was really straight talking, and that's the way I like to work. I don't really like to sugarcoat things. So I think throughout those 12 weeks, I did learn how he likes to work, and hopefully he learned how I like to work. And, you know, so far, so supportive, and, you know, just really willing for me to grow this business. And I think he's obviously very passionate about supporting the next generation of entrepreneurs. And I feel really privileged that I'm part of that cohort.
Yeah, amazing. And Phil, for you, what is the sort of one lesson that you're taking for this for your business, and where are we meeting you at now? What's happening with yours?
I think I've learned that there's certainly something to be said for kind of giving other people their saying, kind of trusting other people's opinions and not being so controlling over everything. I think when it's your baby, you're so worried about making mistakes. I think next for the business is obviously now the kind of brand has been given a bit of a kind of national highlight. We've already set up the Pies by Post service, which was already going really well. We had a great time during the recession, as you see on the show. And I think there's going to be a lot of interest in that. And I think really it's just trying to develop that, keep up with that, and make sure that more than anything, that the product remains good quality, and we kind of keep our core values as a business as being like a family-run business.
Virgin Radio.